Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stu here from Spain Speaks with a weekly review video with Johnny. We'll have a look at some of the things that have caught Johnny's attention this week, so let's go to the video. All right, Johnny, how are you today?
Yeah, good, Stu. Busy period coming over now, so things starting to calm down, and the excitement for the summer is starting to pick up.
Have you started the summer timetable?
Yeah, we started that a while ago, but it's just been a bit difficult to keep up with it through the busy times. But now looking forward to, going to the summer timetable, yeah.
So we'll just explain what it is. In Spain, they call it the jornada intensiva, and basically, according to the company, different companies, different rules, but what it means is that you start work maybe a little bit earlier and you work continuously and finish around lunchtime. Is that right?
Yeah, lunchtime, Spanish lunchtime. Let's clarify that as well. Yeah.
Spanish lunchtime about 3 o'clock.
Yeah, so maybe 8, 9 in the morning, and you work through till 3. Yeah.
And most people do this, or some people stay back, or what's the general?
Yeah, I think most people who work within Spain, because we're international, where I work, depending on your responsibility, you may or may not be able to do it for whatever reason. I'm able to do it to a certain degree, but a lot of the people who work, who have responsibility within Spain, then they can do it. Yeah.
All right, great. What's on the agenda today?
Yeah, well, let's stay on this topic of working. So teleworking, and there's been some news out about what companies in Spain are looking for in their teleworking policy coming back. Because obviously there was a law which was passed recently, which I think allows you 30% of the time to telework or to work remote or from home. But 65% of companies in Spain are hoping to go to a 2 to 3 days of working from home. I believe that's a month. So going to the office will still be a thing, but there will be some extent of remote working in there.
Okay.
And even 25% are going full remote or with a lot of remote working and only coming on site for specific events or meetings. And then 10% are sticking with the traditional, in the office all the time model.
Yeah. What do you prefer?
I prefer a mix. I see the advantages and disadvantages of both. Personally, because I've been working from home where I work alone, it's sometimes difficult when you don't see people, so it's nice to go to the office. However, when you've got a long commute, which is my case, then sometimes it's nicer to have that extra sleep in the morning, or be able to log off your laptop and you're at home already. You could start your evening, your weekend, whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I imagine it depends on the type of company. The more traditional companies probably want to get people back in, or maybe some of the bigger companies, have that flexibility. And I'm sure that, maybe workers think like you, that a mix is probably the way to go, rather than being only working from home or only going back to the office.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the keys for this to be a success it's obviously got to be part of the company culture. So is that compatible with the culture that the company has? Are the management, the leaders buying into it? Are they promoting it? Are they making it, facilitating it, let's say, so that people feel comfortable doing it?
Yeah.
And is there like a real degree of flexibility, and is there the trust between bosses and workers? How do you think this would work in Spain? Because I know in countries like the US, there's obviously talk of a lot of people who want to continue working from home. But I don't know how you think this would play out in Spanish culture.
Well, I don't know. I mean, every country has had this sort of forced upon them to some extent. Here in Spain, for example, when the pandemic first hit, a lot of companies had no choice but to do this, of course, because people weren't allowed to go to work, and people were either put into one of these furlough schemes until their companies adapted to the new conditions, and then people slowly going back to the old way of working. And a lot of people, have got used to working from home. But to give you an example, one company that I work with, they've been very eager from even last year to get people back into the office. I remember back in July, they tried to get people. Sorry, July 2020, they tried to get people back into the office when the pandemic, disappeared there for a while, and of course they couldn't do that in September when people went back to work. And then again this year, one of the first things that they did, I think even 2 months ago, was to get people back into the office. So that's that old school mentality. I think they allow people to work 1 day a week from home if they want, but a lot of the bosses were going every day. All throughout 2021, they weren't working from home at all. They were allowing workers to work from home because people didn't want to take public transport. People didn't want to have to, risk their health situation. So bosses really had no choice. But as soon as they had the chance, this particular company, it was back to the office 4 days a week minimum.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because pre-pandemic, it wasn't something that was necessarily in people's minds, but now with the way things have gone, it's a teleworking and remote working is a more of a real possibility to be considered in the long term. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I think it's been shown that it can be done. I mean, I'm not 100% sure on what the productivity levels are like, or whether companies have the mechanisms to be able to measure that productivity. I get the impression that a lot of bosses are still, they need to be able to see their employees, and a characteristic now of a lot of companies is that they have a model, especially at management level, which is just based on having meetings all the time. You probably had that in your company, Johnny, where it's just meeting after meeting after meeting, and a lot of people like to see people's faces in the meeting rather than through a screen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's teleworking has its advantages, as we said, and it's good that you can call someone over Zoom, over WebEx, over Teams, whatever it is. But I agree, there's nothing that will replace a face-to-face interaction.
Well, they were talking, when the pandemic first began, they said, this is going to change the way people work forever. Travel is going to be secondary now because everybody knows that we can meet on Zoom and we've got the internet capabilities to be able to do it. So you won't need to pop over to Barcelona for a meeting, or you won't need to pop over to London for a meeting. But I think it's just a question of time before that starts to pick up again, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. If anything, this was probably on the way in, but the pandemic has accelerated it essentially.
Yeah, well, maybe a little bit too much, and it sort of has to balance itself out or regulate itself, let's say, until they find that the balance between teleworking, as you said before, or going to the office. But I mean, there's been rumors for years and years that the system was changing, that companies didn't want to have to spend so much on office space. There was commuting times. People were having their days ruined by, I mean, you mentioned it before, Johnny, that you have a long commute. People here in Madrid, people in big cities around Europe and around the world sometimes have hour-long commutes, and it really adds to your working day, if you have to sit in a car for an hour on public transport.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So we'll see how this one goes, Johnny, but probably somewhere in the middle, I imagine. And I think there's also the Spanish government is also working on a new law to regulate home working or teleworking, and I think that's in the pipeline, and companies are trying to work out what this means to them, whether they have to pay internet connections or part of an internet connection, whether they have to pay lunch for people that are at home, whether they have to send somebody from health and safety in to check out whether your chair is ergonomic,
Yeah. I have heard it's in the works, yeah.
Yeah. So all of those things are in the pipeline, and maybe it's just not going to be beneficial for companies if they have to go through that process. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. All right, Johnny, what's next?
So next, Barcelona, a hotspot for institutional investors, particularly the hotel sector. So Melia Hotels sold one of their hotels recently, and there's a couple of major hotels in Barcelona that have been sold. For example, the Hotel Calderón was sold for 125 million euros, and the Grand Hotel Central was sold for 93 million euros. And in a survey that was carried out with institutional investors, Barcelona actually ranked top amongst areas of interest. Madrid was 7th as well. So there's clearly an interest in Barcelona.
Well, I mean, they're expecting tourists to come back to the country, obviously, and cities like Barcelona, if pre-pandemic times are anything to go by, it's going to be huge. And I suppose that if you have an operating hotel, I mean, again, I'm not an expert on this, but if you have an operating hotel and you've been forced to shut for 12 months, it's a lot of costs. So maybe they're looking to get rid of some of those hotels, and these international investors, as you say, or hedge funds or whatever you want to call them, they can sit on those things for a long time until they become profitable again, I suppose.
Yeah, that's one thing. And then another thing is obviously the decrease in property prices, in real estate prices as well, which, like the stock market, it's like buying the dip when the value of that something holds still remains, but yeah, the price is lower than you would typically pay for it. So
Yeah.
a lot of these institutional investors probably saw an opportunity with that. That's what I suspect.
Well, that's true. That's true. And you are getting prime real estate at the end of the day, aren't you? Because hotels are, we spoke about this a few weeks ago, they are in prime locations around the city. If you got your hands on some of those luxury hotels in Madrid, they would be in prime places.
Yeah, well, it says that both Madrid and Barcelona are attractive spots for different reasons. Probably Barcelona for the, international tourism. You've got the beach nearby, and then Madrid as maybe a business destination or a Spanish cultural touristic location. But yeah, both of them are very attractive factors in play when you think about investing
Yeah,
in
well,
real estate.
people in Madrid like to think that Madrid can go, what's the word, is on equal terms when it comes to tourism with Barcelona, but I don't think it's the case. Have you been to Barcelona, Johnny?
I have, yeah. Personally, as much as I love Madrid, I think Barcelona is probably a more touristic destination.
Yeah, well, I think that I think it was the Olympics that put Barcelona on the map. It was the city that was highlighted, and people in Madrid realised that as well. I mean, they tried to get the Olympics 2 or 3 times a few years ago. We had one mayor here that was obsessed with trying to get the Olympics because he saw what it did to Barcelona, the investment, the international recognition. It was a fantastic city visually during those Olympics. I've got memories of the '92 Olympics, Johnny. You probably don't, but I remember the '92 Olympics, especially the diving. It was an amazing background to see the city of Barcelona. And I think that really pushed it into another level as far as international tourism is concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have images. I have the '92 Dream Team from basketball in my head. I've seen various footage of that.
How old would you have been in '92?
I wasn't born in '92, but
There you
from
go.
various documentaries and video, I've seen it, and I completely agree. What that did for Barcelona was probably fantastic, particularly definitely from a basketball perspective. Yeah, really put it on the map.
Well, as I said, I remember watching those Olympics, even if it was on a little television screen, not like the big ones that we have now. It was still a visually spectacular city. I remember the images, and as I said, I think it was that put it on the map. And it's actually one of these a pub quiz question, I suppose. What's the capital of Spain? And I reckon a lot of people would say Barcelona.
Yeah, it's probably the same way that a lot of people may think New York's the capital of the US.
Well, they might
That kind
do.
of thing,
They might
yeah.
do, yeah. Or Sydney, the capital of Australia, and Auckland, the capital of New Zealand. That's right, but it's not the case.
hmm
That is true. All right, good. Anything else, Johnny?
Yeah, so we got another item on here. Have you heard of Gigafactories, Stu?
No, I have not.
So there are factories where you make batteries for electric cars. So Spain wants to use some of the European funds to open gigafactories in the country as part of the sustainable development and to draw investment in the country and save the automobile sector, which I think is struggling a bit. I understand at the moment.
Well, yeah, the automobile sector here in Spain, very, very important for a lot of cities. Barcelona, it's important. Valladolid in the north of the city, Valencia has a car plant as well. The Basque Country has a lot of industry related to this sector. Galicia as well. I think Vigo has a car factory. Zaragoza.
Yeah, I think a lot of these places are competing for some of these gigafactories. But the one that's leading the way is in Catalonia. I think it's Monterel or something like that. and it's Volkswagen that wants to lead that project. Probably for the production, batteries for their Volkswagen cars, for the Seat cars that they have as well.
All of the car manufacturers are moving in this direction. And I was talking to somebody the other day. It's ironic because 10 years ago they were pushing diesel, and Volkswagen especially was pushing diesel. I remember here in Spain that I think 75 or 80% of all cars sold 10 years ago were diesel cars. And of course, they had the Dieselgate in the US, and now it's all batteries and sustainable cars and transport. And Volkswagen is really pushing this hard now. You can see, I think, even during the Euro Championship, which you're probably watching, Johnny, considering that England is doing so well. You can see the Volkswagen advertisements on the side of the pitch.
Mm-hmm. You can indeed. Yeah, I remember as part of my investing series that I have on my channel, I hold Volkswagen. I haven't shared it on the channel, but when they made the announcement about going all in on electric vehicles, I think the stock price went to the point where I've doubled my investment.
Really?
Yeah. But the concerns about the I was just going to say, I think the concerns now are, does Spain have the electricity capacity to be able to produce all these batteries and to manufacture? Because it's a good question, because it's drawn a lot of attention for investment, but it's maybe only outputting right now a third of the capacity that countries like Germany are producing. And I think Tesla, they recently opened a Gigafactory in Germany, or were planning to, and they've had a few problems with it, I think, due to capacity or restrictions.
In Germany?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest, what Spain's capacity is when it comes to this sector. But you would think that if they are investing in it, I mean, if companies are investing in this, they would think that they would have the capacity, wouldn't they? Yeah,
you'd hope so. But yeah, with the capacity, and I think also the budgetary constraints, it would only allow for 3 to be built within the next 10 years.
Yeah, okay.
So it'll be a slow rollout, I think, if it does take off.
Yeah, but it's a good point that these European funds are coming into the country, and all of the big. I think I saw the other day that Repsol, has a whole lot of plans to get their hands on this money, and Endesa has a whole lot of plans to get their hands on this money. So we mentioned it a few weeks ago. Hopefully, this money is going to be well spent, and it is going to make changes to the future, but. The skeptic in me, which often comes out, says that I've seen money get wasted before. Not only here in Spain, but in other projects around the country, around the world, and white elephant projects. And hopefully, this is not going to be the case. But there's a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot in play. Yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, can you remember the figures?
Was it 800? No. 80 billion or 800 billion? Or?
I think it was something like, I think it was like an initial 70 billion or something like that. And you're probably up on this news, but the other day the European Union amended Spain's growth forecast for 2021 based on the fact that a lot of this money was starting to come through, and there were plans in the pipeline. So, they're quite buoyant about the Spanish economy.
Yeah, well, there is hope, and let's stay hopeful.
Well, that's it. Yeah, but if we're going to make the world greener and have a more sustainable economy, I suppose that it's the time to start.
Yeah, and not a bad place to start investing in batteries and electric vehicles.
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem with electric cars up until now has always been that battery aspect, hasn't it? And the range that you can get in an electric car. I mean, in some electric cars, I don't think you can drive very far before having to rechange the battery, So if they can work that out.
Yeah, and the charge points as well, get enough charge points available.
Yeah, I don't see many around more and more are popping up. Are you noticing any where you live?
I can't say I've seen any, but I know of people who've driven electric cars, and they obviously know where they are, and they don't seem to have problems finding them as well. So it must be a particular know-how of having an electric car.
I've noticed one at the local shopping centre that I go to. There's been one there for for a while now, and there's a few other ones popping up around some of the big chain stores. Like if you go to a Decathlon, I think they might have one there where you can recharge the car. But I've always wondered if it's free or whether you have to pay.
Yeah, that I don't know. It's a good question.
Because with the increase in electricity prices, I don't know whether it is something that can be free or whether they do charge you for it. I have no idea how it works.
Yeah, maybe if there's anyone watching who drives an electric car, they can let us know.
Yeah,
in the comments.
that's it. We'll get direct input. All right, good. Anything else, John?
That was all for today, Stu.
All right, great. So we'll be in contact for next week then. Okay.
Perfect. Have a good one.
All right,
Stu.
have a good one. See you later. So there we go. That was the weekly review video. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. See you in the next one. Hasta luego.